And welcome to another episode of Art and Cinema, the #1 podcast for a book club style discussion of all things movies. This is a weekly podcast, and we encourage you to follow along as we take a deep dive into each movie's plot, overall themes, what we thought of the acting and directing, our feelings on the film, and more. At the end of each episode, we will announce the movie for next week, so make sure to listen until the end. Now, at the time that you're listening to this, it's Christmas week, so Merry Christmas, y'all. Jingle jangle indeed. With that said, I am your barefoot host, Sean. Yeah, you can't top that, can you? It's true.
I am your host with a gun.
Nice.
Yeah, I like it. Wait, what's your name, Gun?
All right, I'm your flirtatious host.
Name?
What's your name?
Insert name?
Oh. You had me fucking thinking about the title. God damn it.
And done. Flirtatious host.
We're keeping this
All
one.
right. I am your flirtatious host, Daniel.
Welcome to the show. Soy Alejandro de España, no hablo español. This week, we hope you watch along with us for Die Hard, 1988.
We thank you one and all and wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
It's Christmas Eve in L.A. But a team of terrorists
You want money? What kind of terrorists are you? We do it the hard way.
But the one thing they didn't plan on was New York cop John McClane.
Got invited to the Christmas party by mistake. Who knew?
He's an easy guy to like
Welcome to the party, pal.
and a hard man to kill. Bruce Willis. Die Hard. Yippee-ki-yay, mother...
Dun-dun.
You can find it pretty much everywhere except Netflix. Directed by John McTiernan, written by Jon Stewart and Steven D'Souza. It's based on the novel called... Guesses?
I wrote it, but I don't want to find it right now.
Hard Deadly.
Close, Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe. Starring Bruce Willis as John McClane, Bonnie Bedelia as Holly Gennaro / McClane, Reginald VelJohnson as Sergeant Al Powell, Paul Gleason as Chief of Police Dwayne T. Robinson, Devereux White as Argyle, and finally, Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber. Sexy New York cop, tough guy John McClane is visiting his estranged wife at the Nakatomi Tower in Los Angeles. He hopes to capture her heart, but German terrorists have captured her first.
Hey, technically they're not terrorists. Who said anything about them being terrorists?
You're right. Now sexy, oily New York tough guy John McClane
Oily.
will have to go on a bloodthirsty kill spree so he can win her heart and save Christmas. What the fuck?
So you agree it's a Christmas movie?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Ding dong, ding dong.
So it's been a few years since my last watch, and I was pleasantly surprised. I actually kind of started to get the feeling that this was a dull action movie, and I think I'd gotten that impression from its copycats. It turned out to be quite the opposite. I found it pretty breezy and a great blend of tense, funny, romantic, heartwarming, and self-aware, surprisingly.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like watching it now made me realize that there were more layers to this film than I guess what I had in my nostalgic memory of it. I thought it was just some like mindless shoot 'em up kind of thing, but definitely there's more than that in this film.
Yeah, for sure. It's such a smart movie. And the way that they go about John's journey throughout the film and like how he reacts to things is both like realistic, I feel like, in terms of like how someone would act in this scenario, but then also they don't treat him as an idiot, right? Like he's not all knowing and he does fall into traps, but he also can figure out his way out of them. And
Yeah.
I very much appreciate that. Like he's thinking at all times. Like his greatest strength in this film is his brain, for sure.
Right. And I actually really enjoyed the fact that when the terrorists began, attacking the building and taking people hostage, John McClane's initial reaction wasn't like to be a hero. He was just like, get me the heck out of here.
You're trying to escape.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was just trying to get out of there. He was
Yeah.
freaking out, actually.
That's why he goes upstairs instead of downstairs.
Yeah,
right?
contrary to like other films with like, typical Arnold Schwarzenegger movies or Stallone movies.
or Dwayne Johnson.
Or Dwayne Johnson, So I thought that was like almost like a breath of fresh air.
A big advantage I felt this movie had was that I was surprised at how strong the choreography was. I find that to be the biggest weakness of a lot of American action films is the choreography is really tame, the punches are really pulled back, the shots are close up. This is surprisingly kind of shot like an Asian action flick.
Yeah, they're really throwing each other through desks and things like that.
A lot of medium shots, yeah.
I will say my one little gripe about the choreography, not the choreography itself, but the fight scenes is that it was a little too easy to tell when it was the stunt double and when it was Bruce Willis.
Oh, interesting.
In some of the wide shots.
I didn't even catch that.
Me neither.
Yeah, there were a few moments where it really like threw me off because like it showed too much of like the side of his face, and I could just tell it wasn't Bruce Willis. So I was like, I think they could tighten it up just a little bit.
Sure. Fair enough. So talking about this film and your guys' perception of it, our culture in part is defined by our cinema, right? Art in general, but at least for America, it's cinema. What do you guys think about this movie's cultural impact? I ask this because for a certain generation, like Gen Xers, maybe older millennials, this film and I feel like Ghostbusters are like the quintessential films of like, the late 1900s. Not only that, but so many people in Hollywood were influenced by this film. And as Alejandro alluded to earlier, there have been a lot of derivatives of this film and a lot of homages to this film over the years. So with that in mind, do you feel like this movie has like earned its cultural, I don't want to say impact here, like its cultural standing? Like, do you think it's something that can translate well to someone of a newer generation, like, the Zoomers? If they see this film, do they think like, oh, this is a great film and, it has like certain qualities that, are well done and worth its like cultural status in America? Or because of the fact that there's been a lot of derivatives, there's been a lot of homages, that cultural impact has kind of been watered down for someone who maybe didn't live at the time or didn't like experience it before all these run-ons like started coming about?
I think so. I think the deciding factor for me is, does it hold up against 30 years of interpretation? Newer action films are still being called Die Hard and whatever. That's still the standard. And actually put side by side, I'd say I still prefer this one. In addition to that, it's also still referenced a ton in media that's designed for Zoomers. So like, for example, Rick and Morty, that's not written by Zoomers, that's written by Gen Xers, but it's for younger generations. And they just did a whole episode based off Die Hard, an entire homage to it. Yeah.
Wow.
Sneak around, crawl in some vents, do a Die Hard. Oh, walkie-talkie, that's Die Hard. Don't have to see it to know that.
It's not every day one meets a fellow die-hard enthusiast, Miss...
Call me Die Hard.
Okay, die-hard.
Next time you try to do a Die Hard, don't hide under a long table like the guy from Die Hard.
I don't suppose you have a gun taped to your back?
What the hell does that mean?
It's how Die Hard ends. Doesn't matter now.
Die Hard tapes a gun to his back?
Walkie-talkie Die Hard. Motherfucker.
And you still see that in sitcoms everywhere. So at least the writers still think it's relevant for the younger generation.
Fair enough. But do you think like the younger generation will appreciate the film itself, or do you think they'll appreciate more like certain elements of the film being used in other properties that they like? Like Rick and Morty. Like, do you think Zoomers look at that and say, oh, this is a great, piece of television because of the reference, or because it's Rick and Morty and they use it in their own style?
Both. I think they're going to appreciate seeing a reference that they get. That's an ongoing joke. Die Hard this, Die Hard that. But if they do actually still sit down and watch the movie, I think they'll love it just as much as the people who watched it in theaters. I don't believe that art ages. A painting is always a good painting. A good movie is always a good movie.
Oh, no, I agree with you. I guess what I'm saying is like there's been so many homages. There's been so many derivatives of it over the years that I wonder if its cultural impact has been watered down a little bit because, for lack of a better term, we're kind of inundated with a lot of references to it over the years.
Sure.
Even in like non-action films. Like it's in comedies, it's in animation, as you said. You know, like it's everywhere.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, I mean, nothing beats the original, right? So they can watch
I
all
agree.
these copies that they want, but they're not gonna scratch the same itch. I feel like when I watched Skyscraper, it didn't feel like it scratched the Die Hard itch for me. You know,
And nothing's meant to last forever. So yes, to your point, the cultural impact is gonna get watered down over time. But then if somebody goes and watches the movie, that just resets. There's no replacing that.
Sure. And you know, I just thinking in the moment, you know, there are some movies that do that style of plot well. I think 2012 Dread film is pretty much like that. Did it very well. The Raid, the first one at least, did it like exceptionally. And to me, while I do see it as a little bit of a clone of Die Hard, or at least takes like the same premise, at the same time, I think they put in enough spin on it that, you know, is really appreciated. So for me, like, I agree that art doesn't age, but I like the fact that there are elements from Die Hard that have been taken and expanded upon or put in a different scenario for like a broader audience for people to enjoy, not just, you know, Americans living in the 80s and, you know, can understand those certain cultural references.
Well, the key word you said there was inspired. So while, yeah, they have a similar concept, which the concept in itself is not super unique. It's a, you know, a 2-hour-long siege or whatever. They create their own interpretation. It's not a copying the beats of Die Hard. And the movies you mentioned that are really great are in that category, where they're not trying to copy Die Hard. They're maybe inspired by the idea of a 2-hour-long siege in a single building. But like when I watch The Raid, I'm not thinking that scene's like Die Hard.
Oh yeah, no, me neither. But yeah, I was just saying I appreciate the fact that this movie has such a cultural impact that you could take those elements and expand on them, or at least like put them in a different scenario and, you know, have more people enjoy it.
100%.
Yeah.
So starting off with the movie, we meet our hero as he's flying into LAX, and he's gripping onto the plane seat for dear life, which I like because it's already setting up that this is your normal guy, right? He's not a superhero. Right. He's scared of flying. And we get our setup actually for why he's going to be barefoot for the rest of the movie. He gets told by a fellow passenger, what exactly was it? Do one of you remember what exactly he told him?
He said that if you take off your shoes and socks and then
like rub the balls of your feet around,
or like close your feet like a fist
into like a fist, yeah,
like against carpet on the ground, and it's supposed to like calm you after a flight. And he said it's better than a shower and a cup of coffee.
Right. And apparently it works when you see his expression when he does it. He's like, son of a bitch.
Oh, I love that. I actually had that as one of my funnies, but I thought he was... It's a very quiet scene. He's just like, son of a bitch.
One thing in the beginning of the movie that I felt threw me off was that initial like flirtatious glance with the stewardess.
Why did it throw you off?
It just felt really weird. Like it was like pretty prolonged, like they were just kind of like slowly walking, passing each other, like staring each other in the eyes. I'm like, okay, I guess they're trying to portray John McClane as a bit of a horn dog, you know?
I didn't see it as that. Like he had been separated from his wife for like, 6 months by that point. You know, at least for him, he's like, okay, somebody notices me, right? Because it's very clear that, you know, he's, I won't say bitter, but he's definitely despondent about the fact that his wife moved to California and basically upended their life, right? She took the kids with her to California and he stayed in New York, you know, and he's getting some attention and I guess he's enjoying it. That's my read on it.
I saw it as a continuous theme throughout the first half of the movie. It's not just her. There's 3 or 4 women that he looks at, like, you know, he's checking them out. He doesn't just look at them. And yeah, so he's definitely looking around. And then they actually contrast that with a scene of his wife in the office. She's turning down suitors. She's looking at a picture of her family with him in it at her desk. She's preparing a room in her house in case he wants to stay the night when he's coming to visit. And I believe she actually was the one who invited him.
Yeah.
So I thought it as a very intentional choice to show the difference in their attitudes. She's definitely the more hopeful one in this situation, and it seems like she's going to be putting in a lot more work. At this point, I get the feeling that while he still loves her, he's pretty checked out of the idea of making this work.
Well, I thought that's why he was flying over there, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't he trying to kind of repair things?
Well, I'm talking about levels here. And I remember she invited him over. So yeah, he wants it to work, but I don't think it's on the same level that she does. She really wants this to work.
Because you do see, like, when they start arguing in the room, I believe, was it an office? No. Or,
Yeah, in her office. Or a bathroom, I think.
There's like a room where the bathroom was.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
it's an office.
Like an office room. You know, they start kind of bickering at each other, and then she walks away because she has to go do something. And you see him, like, beating himself up.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
in the mirror. He's like, damn, like, why did I have to say those things? Like,
But
really
you have
mature.
but you have to remember that he's the one who's breaking it off. She never, ever wanted it to end. He's pissed off that she left for her job.
Well, she changed her name. Her last
Well, she
name.
explains that it's
in-
for Japanese culture. She wants to not seem like she's tied down to in a relationship where she can't put in all her energy into working.
You know why I don't buy
I
that?
totally buy that.
I don't buy it because everyone in the office knows that she's married. Like, her boss knows that she's married
Mm-hmm.
already. And so who's she really doing that for? Who's she changing the name for? Mr. what's his name?
Takagi.
Takagi. You know, he's the owner of the building. You know?
Sure, but you could say that as one thing. From what I see, all the evidence points to her wanting to make the relationship work, and she's not the one who broke off the relationship.
I feel like she kind of did when she chose to leave, you know? Like, she knew that her husband, you know, had work to do in the police force that he was working at, you know.
But her viewpoint would be, why your career over mine? I'm making more money. I can support our family better. Why don't you come with me? Yes, he had his career established already, but she was definitely going places further than he was.
But is that enough to establish, like, superiority in choice, you know? Like, they're both two couples living in New York.
Mhm.
One couple's wanting to make a choice to go, and it's like, you either come with me or you don't, you know? That's
Well,
a little
sometimes things aren't communicated well in the beginning. They might have thought they were on the same page, but she never communicated that, hey, listen, I'm a career woman. I have my goals. And so he had his idea and she had her idea, and it didn't mesh up.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that she chose later on to go against their plan, you know?
I mean, and they weren't separated.
They were separated.
Actually.
They weren't divorced.
Oh, they were separated for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Did they ever, like, confirm that, like, verbally or not really? It was just kind of...
I used the word estranged. That's how I thought it.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I read it as like they had an argument, you know, back when she had moved. Things didn't end well. She moved with the kids, and there was maybe a little bit of resentment on both of their ends. On his end because, you know, she left. On her end because he didn't come with her.
Mm-hmm.
And they clearly had a lot to talk about. I don't necessarily agree that maybe he's checked out. I think he definitely came for a reason. Like, he wanted to, and I think maybe she was showing that she was more committed to bringing him back, but at the same time, like, he's coming in not knowing what to expect at this point, and then seeing her name changed back to her maiden name was like, oh my gosh, like, she's like, at least for me, that I saw that as he thought, oh well, she's pretty much past this at this point.
Mhm.
Like, in the moment at least.
But as a result of his break. So he's mad at her, but I think he's partly mad at himself too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he definitely shows a bit of self-loathing.
Yeah, I think he's pissed that he pushed her to that point. And, you know, of course, he's going to take that out on her. Oh, you changed your name. But he knows he broke it off. She's moving on. That's my fault.
Yeah, and especially at that time, you know, there was a bit of like machismo in terms of like the man had to be the sole breadwinner.
Oh, that's that's clearly demonstrated here.
Yeah, and the moment that doesn't happen, you know, it's a bit of a hit to his masculinity, and his like thought, like self-perception.
Definitely.
I think also one extra thing is I think it also plays to the machismo-ness, just the flirtations that he does, period. Whether he feels responsible or not. You know
You
what
think
I mean?
he would have acted that way while married? Like while they were together? See, because that's my greatest hint that he's the one more checked out of the relationship than her.
Right. I mean, I just feel like, it's an 80s movie, you know, and they kind of just wanted to write him as this
I give him more
macho
credit than
guy. I don't know.
I could see the
'Cause-
studio coming in like, hey, you needed to show him a little more macho.
But they show him being specifically weak, you know, in quotes, in other ways. So they're definitely, I don't think they're trying to go in there making him look like Schwarzenegger.
So he's just weak to attention right now? Is that like...
I think he's not fully committed to a relationship. That's my interpretation anyway. But I thought another hint towards your point of him being very machismo was he has a limo waiting for him that he wasn't expecting, right? And I think Holly sent it. Holly's his wife.
No,
As-
actually, Mr. Takagi sent it.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
I'm 1000% positive.
Okay. Does he know that? Like, where
Yeah.
did you hear that?
Takagi-
Mr. Takagi tells him like, "Hey, did you like the limo?"
Right, but when he saw the limo and saw the guy waiting for him.
No, when he
No.
gets to the building and
The-
talks to Mr. Takagi,
hmm
Mr. Takagi tells him.
Right,
that
so
he
I'm talking
ordered-
about his interpretation when he saw the limo. I
Oh.
thought he thought Holly had sent it.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood that. Okay.
Yeah. And I think in his mind, that was maybe demonstrating like
A power play.
Yeah.
and then his kind of resistance against that is sitting in the front seat and being very blue collar. Like, I'm not going to, this isn't a gift.
I feel that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's a good
That's
point.
fair. Yeah, definitely. You know, talking about machismo, actually, I think that was a theme of this film, or rather, a deconstruction of machismo, because throughout the film, you see all of these higher ups act very machismo. For example, the deputy chief, Dwayne Robinson. You know, when they're sending in the SWAT team, you know, the commander saying, "Are we ready?" And he goes, "Kick ass." Not even go. He's like, "Kick ass," like very machismo, right?
Hoorah. Yeah.
But yeah, he was one line away from going hoorah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the FBI agents, you know, the practically nameless FBI agents,
They walk
Johnson
up.
Johnson.
You're not in charge here anymore. I'm in charge.
I'm Dwayne Robinson, LAPD. I'm in charge here.
Not anymore.
Excuse me, who's in charge here?
I am.
Yeah, well, not anymore, you're not. You had your shot, now I'm in charge.
Not anymore, you're not.
All right, people, from now on, you're answering to me. Not anymore, they're not. Orders from the president. Now Nelson is in charge. Not anymore, I'm not.
Yeah, they're very machismo. They're very like, they're in the helicopter. The older one puts his cap backwards, and he's like, "Oh, it's like Saigon," you know, like he's enjoying this, right? And the whole time, everyone's acting very tough, and it's only, quite frankly, it's only the characters who are a little more emotional, a little more thoughtful, are the ones that actually, you know, live through the end of this. I want to say unscathed, but like, you know, come out better for it at the end of it.
Yeah, or
right?
at least are even helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Like Al, John, Holly, like they're all like actually, you know, more thoughtful, a little more emotional, and they get through it okay.
Mhm.
Whereas like, you know, the deputy chief, he's probably gonna get fired for this situation. The two FBI agents blown to bits. You know, like the
Ooh, yeah,
terrorists,
that was rough.
the thieves, like they're, you know, they're all gone. You know, any of them that acted machismo, you know, they were pretty much gone. The only one that like could have maybe survived was Hans, but like, you know, he had to be a little machismo towards the end. So yeah, I think the film does a good job of showing like, hey, in the beginning, you know, John is scared, but you know, he's acting kind of machismo like after the initial siege, but then slowly he's realizing that's not working, so he's having to be a little more thoughtful, a little more methodical about like how he approaches this, and he takes it one step at a time. You know, he puts his ego out and he says, "I need to call for backup," right? Like it's not something that, you know, he can do by himself, and thankfully, like whether it's his cop background or just the fact that, you know, he's realizing he's out of his element, you know, he gets the help that he needs and the support that he needs. So I found that to be a really interesting theme, because normally, especially action movies of the time, like they weren't concerned with how does this action presented. They're just like, look at Schwarzenegger just gunning down hundreds of soldiers like without reloading, you know what I mean? Or, you know, Stallone just like gunning down fools left and right.
Well, I don't know if I'll give him the credit to say that was an intentional theme.
I definitely
here,
think it
too.
was. I definitely think it was, because they, every time someone acted machismo, there are consequences for that, like almost immediate consequences for that.
It
So
seemed
I
like-
definitely think
it
there
does
was.
feel like a recurring theme. The kind of brains beats bronze kind of.
That's how I would have put it. Not machismo, but dumb people are punished. But yeah, you could see it that way too, for sure.
dumb, like pompous people, you know,
Yeah.
that have an overinflated ego, right? They're just trying to step over each other to claim victory over the terrorists, you know.
Paul Gleason's characters actually reminded me of The Breakfast Club. He plays the exact same character.
Yeah, like he comes in like, oh, I got charge of the situation, and then soon enough, within like 20 minutes, he gets overtaken.
No, in both movies, he's the exact same level of unaware stupid.
Right. But he's also like very timid as well. Like when he has to talk to the FBI agents, you know, he's very like,
Well, that's the facade dropping, right? he has that boisterous attitude, and then as soon as he's actually challenged, then you see it fall.
Right.
Yeah, he actually has no strength. It's all like a front. The
Yeah.
moment there's any resistance,
Or when the
just like,
playbook fails.
yeah, just like when he was talking to John McClane, you know, he tried like, you know, acting all high and mighty, and then John McClane just
Shuts him down.
shuts him down hard. He's like, put the other guy back on, and he's got no response to
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So when we get to the limo, we meet really cool character, Argyle. He's the personable, fast-talking driver. And we get some exposition here that normally I would have said we didn't need, but I really love that it doubles up as a narrative device. We learn all about McClane and his background, his relationship with his wife, while also setting up Argyle as this sort of wild card that's going to pop in later. So I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a really intelligent setup.
Yeah, first thought I had when I saw this guy, I'm like, he's either the worst limo driver ever or the best limo driver.
Oh, he's the
'Cause-
best.
He's the best.
Oh, in the end, yeah, you realize he's the best. But
Yeah, at first I was like, I'm going to put myself in that position. That's annoying.
yeah, he was so overbearing, man, with the
Yeah.
questions. And like, oh, you guys divorced? Or this? Like, he's getting real personal real quick with this guy.
Well, McClane's trying to like set up his boundaries. He's just like, no, tell me, come on, you know.
He breaks him down. The guy's a super personable dude. You know, he's joking around. He's very affable. So, yeah.
And we never see him get his tip in the end.
Well, I'm sure they
Sure
gave
he
him
got
a
it.
tip.
Yeah, he could just grab one of the bonds like falling from the sky.
Oh yeah, for real.
There's your tip.
Yeah, right. Speaking of setups, I do just like the fact that this film does lots of setups, right? You know, you talked about the passenger in the plane telling him to take off his shoes, so that's why he's barefoot. This setup with like Hans early on, you know, acting one way, but then, you know, realizing through, I don't know if it was on the spot through the conversation with Holly about how how he's presented, how he seems like a terrorist, and he says, who says we're terrorists?
Mhm.
And running with that, or if he had that plan the whole time. But just the fact that with Hans, he has an understanding of how he's perceived, and he uses that to his advantage.
Oh yeah.
And I really appreciate that. John pretty much visits most of the rooms that the movie takes place within the first like 30 minutes of the film, right? And he like kind of scouts them out almost, and then slowly we start going back to those rooms.
Yeah,
later
you know,
on.
now that you say that, I don't think there's a set that only comes up once.
Yeah, I mean, he scouts out every single room that he has a fight in later on. So it's very interesting that the movie kind of sets that up, especially with like, maybe it's just a small thing, but the conference room with those like weirdly placed tables, they're
Mhm.
kind of like a zigzag shape. It was like, huh. I remember when I first watched it, I was like, that's a weird positioning of tables. But then it's like, okay, they set up for a fight scene later on. A pretty cool fight scene, a little ridiculous, but it's still cool.
Definitely.
nonetheless.
Yeah. Overall, I really enjoyed just how intelligent the antagonists were in this film. Almost mysterious, and he's a good manipulator. Yeah, like the way he was talking to Mr. Takagi, like to try to get him to open the safe. I thought he was being very reasonable. Like when I heard him talking to him, I was thinking to myself, like, I think I would just give him the code.
I was pretty upset at Takagi now that you
Yeah.
bring that up.
Yeah, he was just like, hey, look, this is not really your problem. It's only 10. He said it's 10 days operating time
Right.
for your
Operating
company.
operating
Funds for 10 days of operation.
Yeah.
What's in that vault? That's chump change for you guys.
Mhm.
So let me just grab it. No one gets hurt, and we go.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
mean,
like,
Takagi would have lost his job for sure, but to risk it, I mean, so to be clear, I do believe 100% he would have been executed anyway. But without him knowing that, without him being sure and having that evidence, he definitely should have given up the code and make a chance at life.
You know what, Takagi, I got the sense that he actually didn't know. Maybe I took that too much at face value,
Yeah.
but I got the sense that like he just wasn't aware of that code. So
Yeah, it could be. It's interpretation, definitely.
It's hard to say. I don't know. I mean, he did keep saying he actually didn't know it.
Of course.
And he kind of was saying it
Well, he's not going to
confidently.
say, I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
But here's my question. Why? Okay, Hans is super prepared. They know every step along the way. If they thought he wouldn't know the code, then they wouldn't have asked him. I think they knew he knew the code.
I mean, well, it was, 7 layers of code?
well, no, it's just for the
7
initial lock.
locks?
The code was one step of like a 7-part security system.
Right.
So it held him back a little bit.
Right. I guess I would imagine that he would know the first code at least, right?
And he would know that Takagi knows or doesn't. Like, he would have done his research.
That's true. He did research
fair.
pretty much everything else about the building. And,
That's true.
And they did research exactly the playbook that the police department and the FBI were going to
100%,
use
yeah.
to then manipulate that and work around it. So it was a pretty impressive plan.
Yeah, so he was like, fine, don't tell me. It's going to take us 10 more minutes longer. Like, he has no care for their human life. Boom.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. You know, talking about their intelligence, I just like the fact that, you know, it was a very well-run operation.
This is very kind of you.
Even when things started to fall apart, you know, they still stuck to their plan. And for the most part, they pretty much succeeded. You know, if it wasn't for John coming in, like, they would have gone away with this, like, clearly. Right? So, like, every step of the way was planned by Hans, even if this fly in the ointment, so to speak, John, you know, kind of ruined some of it. But I get the sense for Hans that he was like, all right, well, there's fewer people I have to share this with.
Yeah, he never says it, but you got to know that's running through the back of his mind.
Oh, for sure.
But I think he couldn't say because a lot of his crew were friends and family and stuff. So he couldn't be like, all right, smaller cut boys.
Mm-hmm.
Even when Hans is like discovered by John, you know, he knows immediately to change his voice because of the fact that they've been talking over the radio the whole time.
Please, God, no, you're one of them, aren't you? You're one of them.
We see 3 of them at least put on an American accent. So they were definitely prepared.
Yeah.
For sure. And one of my favorite parts that shows how intelligent Hans was, and the bad guys in general, was that he had an alias ready that he knew that would be on the registry for the building.
Oh, is that how you interpreted it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean,
thought he just read it off the board.
Well, no, but it was
John
like
Smith. Okay.
It was to his side,
Clay,
though.
right?
Like I got the sense, maybe I misunderstood the positioning there, but I got the sense that it was behind him and to his left, so he couldn't have seen it. So he
So he
maybe
knew it
like
before.
scouted that.
So he knew it beforehand. One of the names,
Potentially, yeah. Maybe he just looked.
or
at
he
it
got
beforehand.
lucky.
Or he got lucky. Sure, yeah.
He says his name is Clay, and
Bill
yeah,
Clay.
it was definitely behind him. But did he get both names right, Bill Clay, or was it? Did
Well-
it just say Clay?
Bill, Clay.
It said W.M. Clay, so but W can mean William, which is short. You know, Bill is short for William,
Right.
so it could be. Maybe I'm reaching.
So
a bit,
was the
but
board behind him for sure?
I remember
I
it.
think it was.
I remember it being
Interesting.
behind them, and because John was looking at it, at him, and at the board. It's not like John had to turn around and look at the board. Like he was looking at Hans and the board at the same time. So
Leave a comment down below because I don't remember.
tell us if we were right or wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, a little. Did you know about Hans Gruber's character?
Okay.
You know, we were talking about the act that they were all prepared to do the accents and all that. Actually, Alan Rickman struggled quite a bit in this film in terms of that scene. They had to reshoot that scene multiple times because he actually couldn't really do an American accent very well. And I don't think the director was super happy even with the final result.
But I thought that worked so well because it seemed like he wasn't a professional actor. It seemed like he had to really work for that accent.
Yeah.
Like I like that it wasn't perfect.
I feel you on that. I agree. I agree. It feels like he's like trying really hard to like get it. So it's really reflecting.
He's got a gun in his face. He has no choice.
True. That's very true.
Yeah,
and he had
that's
to think fast at that moment. I mean, he was just there like in shock. He was probably running through a billion ideas in his head on what to do. And he landed on that one.
What does he know? What does he not know? Does he know what I look like? Because he knew that they knew their names already. So it's all a gamble for him.
Right.
Yeah, and it speaks to like the quick nature of like their interaction there because like they weren't together long. I can imagine in other films maybe the bad guy's with him for a time, but no, it was like in movie time like no more than 5 minutes, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that John sussed him out pretty quickly, which I appreciated. He's like the one time somebody calls Hans's intelligence into question. He's basically like, did you think I was that stupid to like lend you a gun? And then immediately like John's comeuppance comes there and they're like, oh crap, more baddies are coming in. So it's like
You were saying?
Yeah, you were saying. So yeah, I appreciate that. Like again, Hans, his strength is also his intelligence. But his greed ultimately got to him there.
Right. Fun moment for me when Hans Gruber and friends first encounter the vault. I don't know if you guys heard it, but you hear softly and slowly Ode to Joy by Amadeus, right? You guys heard that? Okay, okay. And then towards the end of the movie that gets reincorporated, you hear the full triumphant accompaniment, and his hair is blowing, and it's bombastic. I love that. Like, why is his hair blowing? There's no wind down there. So it was just a beautiful reincorporation that I thought really paid off.
I really like that scene for sure. When they get that final lock open.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for them at that point.
Merry Christmas.
Like in that moment, not the whole time, but in that moment.
No, actually, I made a note in my phone was, I hope they win. I hope they get away at the very least. Like, don't kill anybody else.
They worked so hard that you feel for them.
Yeah, like I think there's another strength of the film is the fact that like they're not faceless goons. Like even though we didn't really get to know any of them beyond Hans and Carl to a lesser extent, all of them had like a little scene of like, how do I put this? Like like a character moment with them. Like for example, the I think like the one Asian guy in the group, he's really likes chocolate. Like he's just standing there and like the scene is on him for a good 10 seconds or so.
Chocolate! 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 Chocolate!
And then he's like, oh, some chocolate. And then we cut back to him and he's just like, he's like knee deep in that chocolate.
Yeah, they really gave the antagonist here like a very human element almost that you can like relate to. And honestly, the movie was fairly close to making me want to root for them in general. Like if their plan involved not killing anybody, for example, maybe I would have been like, damn, John McClane just screwed everything up. Just let them take the money. No one gets hurt.
Screw this faceless corporation.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and here we go, John McClane throwing grenades and stuff down the elevator shaft, like endangering the lives of all these people. So yeah, if their plan didn't involve like C4ing everyone at the end
for a distraction,
Yeah.
I honestly maybe would have been like, just let them go.
There could have been an alternate universe of this movie where they're the good guys, like trying to rob from this evil company, and John McClane is like the one security guard trying to stop them the whole time.
Won't quit.
He just won't quit.
All the hostages are like, please, John, stop. Even the wife is like, stop.
Just go. Nobody wants you.
Who are you then?
A pain in the ass. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Well, to you guys' point, I think John almost becomes a bad guy at one point when he takes a dead body and throws it out of the building at Al's car 60 floors below.
Yeah.
Like, what are you, dead shot? You aimed out perfectly. He could have easily killed the cop there. And then that's the movie. He's the terrorist.
Oh my God. Speaking of evil John McClane, oh my goodness. He says during his fight with the brother.
Oh.
So his first kill is, one of the Russians.
This very fancy...
I mean, wait, I'm sorry, German,
I think.
They're
German. Yeah, sorry. One of the Germans he kills, right? Which is
I know because they go 9.
Oh, right.
True. Yeah, and that kill's almost accidental too. Honestly, like he didn't actually kill him. Like they just fell down the stairs,
fell down the
and
stairs,
the guy broke his neck.
I mean, he was trying to kill him too. They were trying to kill each other.
Fair.
But the brother then goes on a vendetta, to get John McClane. That's all he wants throughout this movie. He just wants to kill John McClane. And Hans Gruber is spending half the movie like trying to calm him down, like, hey, we got a plan here.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I don't care. I gotta kill this guy. But man, during their like final fight scene, I don't know if you guys heard what John McClane was saying.
I did too. Yeah, go ahead.
So he says, you should have heard your brother squeal when I broke his fucking neck.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
But no, listen, that's so viable. Like, good guy or not, you're having a life and death struggle. Yeah.
You're in fight or flight response. You're angry. Like, they have your wife hostage. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But it just like for a movie.
Yes.
For
our hero.
For our hero. Yeah, exactly. It really threw me off. I had to pause that thing and write this note down. And then he said, I'm going to fucking cook you and I'm going to fucking eat you.
I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, that was some good trash talk. Yep. That was some good trash talk. I love that.
Oh my God.
Holy crap. That's awesome.
It was amazing.
Oh. And that kind of plays into, maybe not purposefully, but that kind of plays into Hans's perception of John, where he's like, John, you're a result of a broken culture obsessed with like action movies.
You son of a bitch.
And violence.
It's like how European of you to say.
Yeah, basically. But he's like, yeah, you're obsessed with like, Schwarzenegger and Stallone and, action movies of the like, right? And he's like, oh no, I prefer cowboys, right? That's why he calls himself Roy throughout the film, right? Roy Rogers. So it's John almost like leans into that. You know, once Hans calls him like a cowboy, basically a violence obsessed cowboy, you know, John kind of leans into that to their detriment.
Well, he's playing whatever moves he has. If he can't physically beat them, if he can't mentally beat them, then he's going to try to make them angry and make them make mistakes. He's always playing whatever card he has.
Right.
So in that moment, to play a gun crazy cowboy, if that's what works, that's what he goes for.
Right.
Yeah. And he has to pretty much pull every trick in the book to make it in this film, you know? Like, it was like sheer will was not going to be enough.
No way.
He needed to, you know, push himself to the limit with his intellect, his cunning, his strength to, you know, I like that the film did that. It made it seem like he was right at the edge. Like he was almost about to get caught several times.
Oh yeah. He goes from like fearful to kind of confident because he's starting to gain some kills, starting to gain some ground, to then, you know, almost being killed.
Desperate.
Desperate.
When he was stuck in that elevator shaft area, like,
yeah.
And they had him like pinned down.
That was a great moment.
And he had to jump between the vents.
Which, holy crap, how did he catch that with his
First
fingertips?
Of all, I just want to say, I don't think it's even possible to climb up one of those little vents like that. Like to have the leverage to pull yourself into this tiny vent.
And he's kind of big too.
I don't think so. There's definitely artistic licenses taken throughout, no doubt.
And actually, another interesting I read about that scene. So that was the stunt double once again, doing that jump between.
Did you notice that, or you had to look that up?
No, I looked it up.
Okay.
Doing the jump from one vent to the other, and you notice in the movie how he misses the vent and he falls.
Yeah.
That was an accident. That the stunt double actually missed the vent, and then he had to grab onto the next.
Wow,
vent.
he died.
Yeah, you know, it's for the movie.
They got a few, right?
Yeah, they have a few extra ones.
Oh, damn.
It was a repeat of the Twilight Zone movie.
At least they kept the shots. His life was worth something.
So anyway, speaking of evil John McClane, man, he really left Ellis to die, huh?
Hans, this asshole is not my friend. I just met him tonight. I don't know him.
All right, John, listen. They want the detonators, or they're gonna kill me.
Shut up, Ellis. Just shut your mouth.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Oh, please.
I'm joking.
You're the chief of police, aren't you?
The deputy chief of police, mind you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dwayne T. Robinson. Yeah.
Yes.
You let that man die. It's like you pulled the trigger. I'm like, what is he expecting to do? This guy's such a dick.
Yeah, I mean, he tried everything in his power to save that guy.
Yeah, like, what did that guy think was going to happen? Like, again, you know, it speaks to a lot of critiques, honestly, I think the director had of culture at the time.
Of cocaine use?
No, of like that business Wall Street
part of the
type.
culture, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, like the guy who thinks he's going to save the day, you know, and he's like, Bubby, come on.
What are they called? Yuppies?
Yeah, I mean,
yuppie?
Yeah, basically. But yeah, this guy is just like completely out of his element, and he's like inviting the danger, whereas John is like trying to like get away from it at any point, you know. Yeah, so
and that was just one more instance of machismo backfiring once again.
Stupid backfiring.
And
I'll say machismo. The guy was
machismo and stupidity. I mean,
yeah,
a little bit of both. I mean, they both go hand in hand in this film, I think.
For sure.
Speaking of artistic licenses, so you mentioned one part that was a little unrealistic. I have a couple others that I'm not sure about, so you guys tell me what you think. If there's gunfire going off on the 70th floor or 60-something floor, would it be silent on the ground floor? I feel like Al would have been able to hear it, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think
he wasn't on the roof.
Caught in a vat.
He wasn't on the roof. No, I'm saying they were on like the 60-something floor.
And it was enclosed with the window.
Right.
It'd be caught in a vacuum. Because the sound won't travel very far there.
You don't think it would travel through the building?
I mean, it depends. It depends on the material.
Those windows.
I don't know what those windows are made out of.
Building windows are pretty thick, you know, compared to like a house window.
I'm talking about Al inside the building. Outside, I don't think he would have been able to hear it. When Al was actually inside walking around, they were having a gunfire battle.
Again, I don't think the sound would have.
While he's in the lobby.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think the sound would have traveled that far.
That's a lot of floors.
Fair enough. That's why I asked. And then there was another thing where throughout the entire movie, characters are interrupting each other and talking over each other on walkie-talkies. I've only ever used toy walkie-talkies, but I thought the point of that kind of communication where you have to go over and out and whatnot is because you can't interrupt each other. It's one way.
Oh, they don't say over. Like they don't
Well,
use
one
the
person's
walkie-talkie.
talking, and then they'll literally be interrupted by the person on the other end of it, going, whatever they're saying.
Oh, true. I don't know much about walkie-talkies.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
To be honest,
I don't know.
Comments.
I don't know if there's some kind of radio walkie-talkies that you can hear multiple voices at the same time.
Well, you've used one before, right? You hit the
Yeah.
button, you talk, and the other person can't speak until you let go of it, until you're
Right.
done talking.
Yeah, I have used one of those before. So
Right.
if that's the only type of walkie-talkie that exists, then yeah, I guess that's a bit of an error in the movie.
No, I call it creative license.
Okay.
It's not like they didn't know if that was the case, so not really an error. They chose to ignore it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I have one.
Okay.
It's at some point when John returns to the conference room where Takagi got killed, and a couple of guys come in and start shooting him up, and John kills one of them, the one that which, by the way, I not to go back to our previous talk too much, but I like the fact that the bad guys were communicating with one another, that his partner goes, "Hey, Marco, get down." And then the guy immediately goes down and tries to shoot John, but John's quicker on the trigger.
Sure.
But then John immediately goes underneath the table, which I guess I understand, or the set of tables. But then he stays underneath the set of tables the whole time while the guy decides, I'm going to jump on top of the table and start shooting. And I'm thinking to myself, why didn't you just stay on the side and just stay stationary and just start shooting at him? Why'd you have to jump?
I don't know. I don't know if he knew John had a gun at that point. Did he?
Well, his partner literally just got shot.
That
Right
just got
behind
him
him.
shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was acting okay, I can see him acting that way if he's playing with him because he doesn't have a weapon. Hey, run away, little rabbit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely creative license, but it's half and half because he's getting everybody riled up and stupid.
Again, it was a cool scene, so I don't mind.
Exactly. It wouldn't have been as dynamic.
There's a part right after that where Carl and a couple other goons are chasing after him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's right after John gets in the vents. And they're starting to shoot up the vents to see where John is. And of course, right before they're about to shoot where John is, then they get called away.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Or he's poking at the vents with his gun.
Right, yeah,
That's
yeah.
what
He's trying to test the way to see, if he's there. And then, of course, he gets called away.
What's the problem?
It's just a contrivance. It's a contrivance I see all the time. It's oh, they're about to be found out. Oh, wait, something distracts them.
It is done a lot, but maybe we're tired of it because we've seen it now till 2022. You know what I mean?
Sure.
In the 80s, maybe that wasn't as...
I also want to give it
used.
some in-movie credit because a lot of times what makes it stale is not that it's used in the industry too much. It's that it's used in the movie too much.
This was used only once.
Right.
So I did.
They didn't overplay their hands. Kind of like a jump scare. Once is gets your heart racing. 5 times is okay, come on, enough.
And they had a good reason to call the guy before he can poke the last one.
Because the police were there.
Right.
Al had shown up.
In a worse movie, an animal would have run by, then they would have gotten distracted.
Yeah.
Nothing related to the plot.
Fair enough. I guess I'm just tired of seeing it. It's such a contrivance.
Yeah, fair enough.
That happens all the time, I feel like.
I really love that they lambasted cable news experts for what they are. Those segments were so fantastic. Bullshit artists whose job is to fill airtime in between the real news.
The one guy, he's like, Helsinki, Sweden. And they're like, Finland, you idiot.
Yes, I think what's going to happen is the captors are going to fall in love with their captees. And, a lot of times after these types of events, they actually call each other and have correspondence.
It's like hostage, terrorist hostage. I love that name. What a good book.
Oh, was that the book? That's awesome.
That was the book that the guy who was talking about that condition
Obnoxious
had written. Yeah, it was definitely obnoxious. Definitely. I just liked the beginning of that scene because Thornburg, the reporter, the jerk reporter in this film, he goes, "Eat it, Harvey," to the one of the co-hosts, and the guy live is just staring him daggers,
super offended.
"You piece of crap." And then "Hey, buddy, you're live." He's like, "Oh, and welcome to blah 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 blah."
I'm so pale. You're on it.
Which I appreciated. Man, by the way, that Thornburg guy, he deserved that punch and more at the end.
Oh yeah, I was with him for a while until he started.
Yeah, you know what? In the very beginning, I thought
in the beginning before he's taking advantage of anybody, he's just an underdog.
Yeah, the underdog just trying to move up in that field, and he found a good opportunity. But then he just went too far. Finding John McClane's home and
invading his privacy, threatening to call the INS on his maid.
Yeah, on her maid, really, but yeah.
Right. Oh, on her maid. Yeah, it's her house.
Right. Yeah, for me, maybe I've just watched the film too many times, and the sequel, which he's in, by the way. And he's just always been a slime bag to me. So it's like, I understand your guys' point about him being like kind of an underdog there. Like nobody takes him seriously, but I'm like, this guy just creeps me out to even begin with.
Well, no, yeah, I think our point was like before he's shown doing anything slimy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If you haven't seen any of the other movies or never seen this one before, in the beginning he gives no indication that he's gonna be slimy. You know, except kind of like, you know, insulting the anchor guy. But the anchor guy
they were being dicks.
Yeah, the anchor seemed like a dick too. So it was just kind of like I was rooting more for that guy than the anchor.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh, sure,
at that point.
Sure.
Speaking of characters not in the building, let's talk a little bit about Sergeant Al.
My favorite.
His bromance with John McClane.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, that's definitely it.
What did you guys think of that dynamic?
I loved it. I mean, John needed support, and literally no one else was going to give it to him. But, well, Al. Like, Al was the perfect compliment to John. He was kind of like the calming presence. You know, like every time John went through some adversity, he would then talk to Al. And Al would kind of calm him down and, you know, kind of give him a little bit of perspective on what's going on and cheer him up, really. Like multiple times in their conversation, Al's like, hey, the boys down here are rooting for you, buddy. So he's like that emotional support that John really needs at that time. Because I really feel like if John didn't have Al, I don't think John would have made it through all the way. Like he probably would have died like towards the end, if anything.
I found him to be really cheesy, but the right amount. Like it was off-putting at first, but then I kind of really liked the levity he brought. That's the part of the film that to me was self-aware. He's gonna come in with these really hammy, over-the-top lines like "You got it, brother," you know, "You and me all the way." But it worked. It worked. It was a good counterpiece to the rest of the film.
I overall felt good during all those scenes where they're talking to each other. Like it was definitely feel-good moments. It helped put a good break between the action.
For sure.
That was needed, right? Because like if that wasn't there, it would just been non-stop motion, you know? They needed moments to breathe and just plan out their next move and reset themselves emotionally speaking as well. So yeah, I thought it worked really well and helped the pacing along.
To Alejandro's point, though,
Mm-hmm.
I appreciated that they had a quick camaraderie because, you know, they went through this shared trauma, you know, so it's like immediately they're like, hey, I see you're on my side. Like, I'm gonna stick with you.
I read you, pal. You the guy in the car?
What's left of him. So what do I call you?
Call me Roy. Al, you still with me, babe? What's going on?
Hey, Roy, how you feeling?
Pretty fucking unappreciated, Al.
Hey, look, I love you. So do a lot of the other guys. So you hang in there, man. You hear me?
Yeah, thanks, partner. How many kids you got, Al?
Well, as a matter of fact, my wife is working on our first. How about you, cowboy? You got any kids back on your ranch?
Yeah, 2. Sure hope I can see him swinging on a jungle gym with Al Jr. someday.
I shot a kid. He was 13 years old. He had a ray gun look real enough.
Pal. Yo, pal, you got a minute?
I'm here, John.
I want you to find my wife. Don't ask me how. By then you'll know how. Tell her that she's the best thing that ever happened to a bum like me.
Well, now that's a date.
Well, like you said, they share a similar rap background, but they're both down-to-earth, blue-collar guys. Like, they work for a living.
Yeah, exactly.
That was part of the instant camaraderie.
For sure. Yeah, they definitely understood each other, even though they hadn't met. Like, the moment they had the first conversation, it's like, okay, I understand this guy.
He was involved in my favorite scene. You want to hear it?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. John and Holly stumble out of the Nakatomi Tower, holding on to each other, but then
I love this.
The music swells.
Unironically love this.
The music swells, and out of the mist stands Sergeant Al Powell.
The real Union.
The real Union. John throws Holly to the floor and runs into Powell's strong embrace. And that's how the movie should have ended right there.
Yeah, I guess not. I unironically love that scene. Seriously, like when watching this film for the podcast, I actually rewound it multiple times because I was like, man, this is legitimately heartwarming. because of the fact of everything that they had gone through. And it's like, you've been my buddy. Like, I got to give you a hug. Like,
Right.
just him walking up and you see the side profile shot of them both and the music is swelling. Like, I want to get into in a moment the musical accompaniment, but I really appreciated the music here. I thought like it worked in this scene and enhanced it so much. Like, I love that scene.
I'm just glad that John like walked over with his wife at least, right? Because
Oh,
if he
yeah.
just left the wife behind and just went
No,
to him,
it's what-
that
I
would
like-
have
I like my interpretation
That would have
better.
been next level.
Yeah.
But you know, when I first saw the scene, I immediately thought like, man, they're really putting so much more importance on his own wife relationship, you know.
Yeah.
But the more I thought of it, the more I felt it made sense because they have both just gone through such a traumatic moment together. And you know, John felt like he had Al to is it Al?
Yeah.
He had Al to thank, you know, in part for helping him get through that moment.
Yeah. The other cops were honestly about to label him a terrorist along with the rest.
Yeah.
Right.
So he's the only one that stood by him and you know, throughout the entire time. So yeah, I felt that union was very realistic.
For sure.
You know. I really enjoyed it as well. I didn't rewind though. Not like Sean.
Legitimately, I rewound it like many times because like the part where like they're
'Cause you
on
had to
screen
finish.
together. What? cut that out. Wow.
Oh man.
So, anyways,
Hey, that's a compliment. You're not a 2-pump chump.
I guess so. I legitimately love that scene. I mean, the majority of the movie, like of a relationship, is really between John and Hans and John and Al.
Yeah.
So like I understood and appreciated that they gave that its due, basically. Because then, you know, obviously the movie ends with John and his wife. Like the movie's clear, like, no, this is his ultimate relationship. But this newfound relationship that he has with Al, you know,
Ooh.
is important.
And Al gets one final moment too. So right before John and Holly are gonna ride off into the sunset, a Nazi lunges out of the building wielding a machine gun. He's like ready to mow
Carl.
John down, right? Who?
Carl, the guy that, which by the way, this was a little bit of an artistic license or creative license. That guy was hanging by his neck,
Yeah.
for a while.
After
there.
getting
He did a pull up and he got himself
after
out.
getting beat up for quite a while. I don't know.
No, I mean he got hung. The hostages went up the
Nakatomi Tower.
onto the roof. They came back down on the roof and he was still there. So it was,
Was he?
no, he was like, they were fighting like right before they got to the roof, and then the hostages came back down and some of them were noticing him hanging there. So he was hanging there for more than like a couple minutes. Like he
He survived based off rage.
I guess so.
Iron neck.
His neck did not break. Now we must watch him strangled to death.
And so he comes out and Al cures his PTSD and unloads his pistol center mass. So, you know, now Al is free to roam the streets again. Little kids beware.
Oh my god. Oh no.
Don't have your ray guns out after like 8 p.m.
No. But yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, that was a bit cheesy. But yeah, I guess to give Al his due.
I wrote a little song for him.
Oh my goodness.
The fire outside is frightful, but my God is so delightful. And if the children don't run, let it snow.
What is wrong with you?
Wow.
Are you gonna be writing jingles for each movie now?
No, I thought Al deserved one.
Oh my god. And I want to go back to your like Nazi comment. You know?
Yeah.
What'd you guys think of the antagonist diversity in this movie? So we have mostly a group of Nazis.
Oh yeah, they're Germans, but like all they care about is money.
All they care about is money, and then they have one, the African American hacker.
Yes.
And then they have one random like Asian
Henchman.
Henchman.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And
two blonde boys. Hans himself, who's
Right.
I guess just German.
Do you
And
know
then,
do you know how many of those guys were actually German?
At least 4. At least.
Like
I think you're about to tell us.
None of them were German.
I figured.
When you say that, do you mean
No, I mean the actors.
the actors?
Sorry,
Okay,
the
okay,
actors,
okay.
the actors. Yeah, none of the actors were German.
Oh, fair enough.
Which I thought was pretty interesting.
Most of them except Carl didn't really look German to me.
So you're saying it's cultural appropriation?
Well, from what I read, the bulk of the German cohorts weren't. So maybe some were, maybe some, but the bulk of them were not. The only one that you can say for certain that was German was actually Bruce Willis.
Hey-o.
He's German?
He's actually German. He's half German, half American.
One more check for the bad guy list.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, he's the bad guy now?
Yeah, he's throwing dead bodies at cops from off the building.
And he's the antagonist of the film. Okay.
Yeah, he's the real German.
Hans is the true protagonist.
Another interesting fact, and I have a question after, but so did you know that the German that Hans Gruber is speaking is actually gibberish? How do you think that would work in a movie made today? Do you think that would actually work, or will there be some backlash?
It still happens all the time, and by backlash, it's like a couple articles are written, a few people care, and then that's it. It gets dropped. So I think it could absolutely be done today. Maybe there'd be more BS articles shared on Reddit, but it wouldn't actually change anything.
I feel like maybe movie makers today wouldn't want to do that anyway. I don't know.
Well, it's easy enough to get somebody to speak German.
Yeah.
So yeah, they probably wouldn't, but I don't think the backlash would be anything that would actually take away from ticket sales.
I'm surprised they even went through with that back in the 80s.
It's weird. I'm surprised, at that fact. Yeah.
Especially, I would think, oh, maybe they're hiring some A-lister to be the antagonist, but he doesn't speak German. Okay, right? Because we want you to be the antagonist.
Yeah.
But in this case, actually, Alan Rickman, this was his feature film debut, and he didn't speak German. You know what I mean?
Really? This was his first
feature
movie?
film. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was kind of weird that they would have picked him knowing that they would need someone to be able to speak some German, but instead they went with Alan Rickman and gibberish.
And there's so few German lines that you'd think you could just phonetically give him those few lines.
That's true too.
Or just dub it, if anything. Like maybe have it say, phonetically.
Well, that's another option.
Dub it, yeah.
Exactly.
So definitely an interesting artistic choice there.
I mean, let's consider the fact that I have never heard of that controversy, and I don't think Sean has either.
No.
So obviously it wasn't a big deal back then. And, people like to bring up old movies and hate on it now for their cultural insensitivity. And I haven't seen any articles about it. So honestly, don't think it's a big deal, but it is weird.
Plus it's German. Quite frankly, no, seriously.
No, but seriously, yeah.
Like, people don't really care too much about, like, certain European nationalities or, like, culture in general, because, like, that's just so widespread. If it was, like, him, but he's supposed to be Asian and he's talking, like,
Or imagine an African language.
Yeah, exactly. Like, someone where he's clearly not supposed to be who he says he is, then, yeah, I think there would be more backlash. But because it's German, it's like, who cares? We beat him 40 years ago.
Damn.
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. Takagi says, hey, we gave you Pearl Harbor and you gave us tape decks. Can we talk a little bit about the score of the film? Like the musical score of the film?
No.
What'd you guys think about it? I loved it, but I can understand that it was maybe used a bit too much in certain points, or I could see maybe you guys thinking that based off some of our previous podcasts. But what do you guys think?
I found it to be pretty innocuous in a good way. Like, it didn't draw attention to itself. I thought it was always appropriate. Yeah, what about you, Danny?
Yeah, no, I felt it was always appropriate as well. There was just enough Christmas jingles thrown in there, sprinkled in there to keep it festive. Yeah, I thought it was fine. Actually, there was only one scene specifically where the score drew attention to itself, and actually it was when John McClane first exits the plane in the beginning of the movie, and then you see the kind of a wide shot of people like grabbing their bags from the conveyor belt from the baggage claim, and you see him walking up the stairs with a teddy bear.
Okay,
but then it's like this droning like sound, like almost like the suspenseful thing, like
isn't that the one the credits roll, like the title card rolls, right? It goes Die Hard.
No, right? No. It's after the conversation in the plane with the guy. He lands in L.A.
Yeah, he's going up the escalator.
Oh, I guess
right?
there are title.
Yeah,
are there
it is
cards?
the title card was there at that moment. So
okay, I don't know. It felt
so
strange. It was like just him kind of looking around, but it was like this like foreboding music.
Yeah.
Well, with the title card, I can see that working, and honestly, I didn't notice it, so
yeah,
I won't say much about it.
That's the only one that drew my attention. Though, but no, otherwise I enjoyed the score. Yeah,
sick.
Me too. The one thing that I thought was, again, maybe a little bit of a creative license, but now related to the music, is Argyle in the limo in the garage. He is listening to Skeletons by Stevie Wonder, and he is listening to that song like on repeat, because throughout like the middle half of the film, they cut to Argyle every once in a while. Like something happens, like, oh, they blow up the APC or something, and you cut to Argyle just kind of like with singing and humming along to the song. And like there are multiple instances where, you know, he's just there and they cut back to him and he's listening to the same song. I love Skeletons by Stevie Wonder, but I'm like, I don't know if I could listen to that on repeat for like 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So
I didn't even catch it.
There was one moment that I really appreciated about the score that kind of heightened it without drawing attention to itself, was when Holly first talks to Hans, and Hans starts to get a sense like, who is this woman? Right? Like he's starting to get a little suspicious of her, and it plays like a little tiny musical cue in the background. I thought that was so like perfectly not
subtle.
Yeah. It's like kind of subtle. It's in the background. And I don't know. It was just like, I got like goosebumps when I saw that. Like I've watched this movie many times and I got goosebumps when I heard that little like flare happen. And like that kind of happened throughout the film. Like just little flares would happen in a scene that would just accompany it and like bolster that, like that, the emotion of that. And I really appreciate when films like bolster, like their musical score bolsters the emotion of it rather than like the pomp and circumstance of like the scene. And I think this film does a great job of like the former.
I agree. What'd you guys think of the pyrotechnics and the effects used in the film?
Fantastic. It was what probably makes the movie, or at least puts it over the top over any of its competition.
Yeah,
it feels like he's right in it, and it's visceral.
Definitely. And I'm surprised. I mean, it felt so much more big budget than it actually was. Considering the budget for this film was $25 to $35 million, which I think even in the 80s that was kind of low.
Well, maybe we can go back to the casting then. Bruce Willis was not a huge star at the time. He had done like one major movie before that. True. And he definitely wasn't an action star.
He had done a show
Right.
that was pretty popular at the time. But yeah, at that time, you didn't see him as an action star.
Well,
Like,
remember
this was like
at-
the start of his action stardom.
That, and remember at the time that TV was looked at as the lower form. So you could get a TV actor for a lot less.
Sure.
Right.
It wasn't, there was no HBO yet.
And he was actually known more as a comedy actor.
Right.
Believe it or
Right.
not. And speaking of that, he actually wasn't the first choice for the studio either for this movie.
Stallone.
Let's see, who'd they offer this to? They offered it to, yeah, you're right, Stallone. Stallone was one of them.
I knew that one, yeah.
Harrison Ford was another one.
I would have liked that.
I expect to be well paid. I'm in it for the money.
Mel Gibson.
Also a good choice.
Yeah. Robert De Niro.
Wow.
Burt Reynolds.
No.
Yeah, he was a bit past his prime at that point.
And Richard Dean Anderson.
Who's that?
MacGyver.
Oh,
That
I
could
mean,
have been good.
that sounds like a tight race. There's a lot of good choices in there.
Yeah. But it wasn't really a race because they all declined it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's why they went with Bruce Willis.
Probably, you know, I bet you they all declined it because they were offering too little money. Those are all big names even then.
That's probably why.
That's where the budget saving is. I can't think of anybody who could have demanded a big paycheck
Yeah,
there.
definitely all the budget went into all those pyrotechnics. I mean, they had a rocket launcher shooting out a tank, some kind of tank that they bought.
The police have themselves an RV.
All the helicopters. I mean, they had,
Yeah, it goes
they had
on
a,
and on.
They had a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
What else?
loved,
Oh, and another piece of technology that they used, which I thought
Helicopter.
I felt like it was unnecessary, but I guess they shot this entire movie in a studio. When you see like the skyline with all the buildings and you see traffic moving in the back,
Mhm.
that's actually a 380-foot long background painting used as an illusion for the city, and it had animated lights and moving traffic. And
Well, there's your budget saving too.
and the ability to change from day to night.
Wow.
And it's and that is still used in the studio today for other films as well.
That's crazy. That worked.
So you're saying they use CGI?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. Actors and studio sets both save a ton of money.
Mm-hmm. In case anyone was wondering, it made $141 million in the box office.
The time, that's pretty good.
So
very good.
You know, coming from 35 million to 141.
Yeah,
they made their money back.
Well,
and
that's in theater tickets. And remember, the secondhand DVD and rental market was huge back then. That could be bigger than in your theatrical release.
I mean, this movie has been re-released so many times on everything.
On everything.
You know, it's
and that
a classic.
That was prime rental time.
No,
so
they banked on it, and you know, they also made like 4 sequels for good reason.
Well, sure, but you can't include that into the profit margin.
Well, oh, right. Nah. Oh, true. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's more of a result.
No, I'm just
of
saying
profit,
that. I'm just saying. Yeah. They made so much money that
Yeah.
they saw the value of this franchise, and
I'm sure
eventually-
opening day they were greenlighting a sequel. Yeah.
What's the sequel called again? Die Hard.
Die Harder?
2? Die Harder.
No, it's just Die Hard 2.
Oh, that's a shame.
No, I think it's Die Harder. Die Hard 2. Die Harder.
Die Hardest.
You're fooling me.
No, I'm not.
I'm pretty sure it's just Die Hard 2.
You know,
it's the third one that has a different name.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
It's not just called Die Hard 3. It's like
Isn't
has a
it Die
different
Hard
name.
2 Die with a Vengeance?
Die Harder? Oh wow. Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
there
fair.
you go.
I was proven wrong.
Is
Die
that
Harder.
the tagline or the?
It's Die Hard 2. Die Harder.
Wow.
I wonder if Die Hard 3 was called Die Hardest.
I already made that joke.
Well, I'm reappropriating it. So I win.
We ready for scores?
Give me your score.
Okay, mine's quick. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Boom. I think in terms of improvements, there were a few line reads I didn't like. There were a few script choices I didn't like. There were some technical parts that could have used a touch up or maybe another take. Other than that, pretty perfect movie. Easy.
Yep. I also give it a 9. I mean, yeah, you're pretty much right on that. For me, the only little issues are like what I've mentioned earlier, like some of the fight scenes I felt could have been a little more tightened up. And yeah, some of the lines could have been rewritten a little better, or you know, resaid a little bit better.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's great. It's a fun Christmas action movie.
More like the ultimate Christmas movie. There are none better. And with that said, I give this movie a 10 out of 10.
Hey,
whoa!
I absolutely adore this movie. While there are a few minor nitpicks I have with it here and there, I believe this is as close to a tightly constructed and well-paced movie as they come. To me, it's a cultural touchstone, a classic, and quite frankly, it's perfect. So, 10 out of 10 for me.
This is very kind of you.
Next week, join us for In Bruges, 2008. 2 professional assassins are ordered to wait it out in the idyllic city of Bruges. Can they survive boredom, cocaine, and racist dwarves? Let's find out together. You can find it on YouTube, Amazon Prime, and Blu-ray. Sean, let them know where they can find us.
You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Art and Cinema. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, please give us a rating and leave a review. We really appreciate it. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, hit the like button, hit subscribe, and click the little notify bell so you're made aware. Ding, ding, indeed. So you're made aware when new episodes drop every week. And with that, guys, thank you very much for listening. Again, Merry Christmas to all. Ding, dong, ding, dong.